All right, coming up here in our Finding Faith segment this morning, I have a couple of special friends with me. It is Terry and Jane Fleck. Welcome to our show this morning. We're going to get right into it. We could probably talk all morning long, but you guys have been married for 43 years.
Yes, sir.
And for the first 10, you're very familiar with infertility and loss, and not only with you guys, but also with your two adopted daughters as well. You have an amazing story, so tell us about it.
Well, it kind of started off very early in our marriage. We wanted children, and 4 years into our marriage, we lost our first baby at 4 months, and then it just persisted. So from there on, 11 consecutive miscarriages. And
Excuse me, how many?
11 documented consecutive miscarriages during during those first 10 years or so of our marriage. And that's when we kind of pivoted, and maybe you can tell a little bit about the girls.
Then we adopted, and then adopted again 3 years later.
So you adopted two daughters.
We adopted two precious daughters.
Yes, yes, I know who they are. And, tell us about their story real quick, too. They had some loss as well.
They did. They had big losses. They each lost 3 babies. And so we've had losses in our family from early on in pregnancies up till birth. And so we've had
you had
17
miscarriages.
17 losses, yeah.
You had your own
Little
grandchild.
Eliza.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. When did the cycle end? When was it broken here?
Well, for us, it was the adoption of our first, and then, but the cycle of the losses for our whole family was our granddaughter. You know, when they first laid her in our arms, it was.
We're seeing some pictures right here.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's our daughter. So at her birth, 18.
Just emotionally and physically, the trauma that you guys went through. What was that like? I mean, this is 11 miscarriages, and you never were able to carry one full term.
That's right. Yeah.
Explain that to us here, how you felt emotionally.
Emotionally, you know, it's it's at the core of a woman to wanting and a father wanting to have children. So it was a tough thing, but in the midst of it, with the first one, actually, I accepted Jesus as my Savior. And he had all the provisions that we needed. Not that it was easy, but in those especially difficult, dark times, he gave us what was needed to support us, the peace and the comfort.
And even after that, it didn't guarantee that you'd be able to carry it full term there.
No.
So, let me just ask you this here. We have a few minutes. Going through all this, were you guys ever bitter or mad at God?
I'd say mad, yes. Bitter, I knew there was that this was bigger than me, and I could either go bitter or I could grow through this.
It's a choice.
It's a choice, and so angry with God, yes. Why over and over? And but you know, you just submit to what's there.
Do you think he'll ever tell you why he allowed you to go through this?
One day.
I think gradually it is uncovered. I mean, as a Christian, I was seeking out answers. I wanted some rational explanation, and yet I understood that, you know, when man chose to go his own way instead of going God's way, that created dysfunction and death and destruction. And so I had to wrestle with, did this come from you or did this not come from you? And the reality that Jesus already came, paid the penalty for that. So I understood early on, this didn't come from him. This was a consequence of just the curse.
And he's allowed you to go through it. We're not saying he caused it, but he allowed you to go through it.
Exactly.
And Terry, as a father here too, how did you feel watching your wife go through the physical trauma and the emotional trauma both together?
Yeah, it was a struggle because, you know, you want to have answers. You want some reason to reply, and that really wasn't going to happen. And so I had to come to the reality that if I mistake God's nature here, I'm going to mistake how I live. And so coming to the conclusion that he's 100% good all the time, the perfect father, made me realize this didn't come from him. He suffers just like I suffer in regards to that. And so that gave me a lot of confidence, really, in being able to talk and comfort Jane through the process and to have hope.
No matter what happens, we know that God is in control here. What advice would you give to couples out there who are childless and they keep trying, like you, to have a child? What would you say to them?
Yeah, for me, just don't go bitter. Make sure you understand that and be willing to accept the fact that you're going to live in some mystery here. You're not going to have answers to all of your questions, and that's okay. So, don't bring the standard that God sets down to your level of experience. Take your level of experience up to what the biblical standard would be.
We are out of time, and I knew this would go by super fast. We're going to do a podcast here, and we'll get into a little more detail, so we're going to do that. But Terry and Jane Fleck, thank you for coming on our show here. I know it's your personal faith in Jesus Christ that gets you through, and it makes you even stronger and better servants for Him. So we could talk all day.
Thanks, Randy.
Anyway, George, we'll pitch it to you.